Salvete discepoli. In this video lesson, we are going to skip forward now to Book 4 of Caesar's Gallic Wars, in which we will read the exciting account of how Caesar plans to invade Britannia. At barbari consilio Romanorum cognito, praemiso equitatu et essedariis quo plerumque genere in proeliis uti consuerunt, reliquis copiis subsecuti nostros navibus aggredi prohibebant. Okay, that's quite a sentence. Always a good idea when you're scanning a sentence, look for main verbs, okay? Once you believe you have identified your main verbs, you kind of know where the main action is going to happen, okay? This is going to be your subject, but the barbarians, what are the barbarians going to do? Well, the first thing they did is this, and then the next thing they did is that. But the barbarians. Okay, now we have a little mini ablative absolute here. Consilio Romanorum cognito. Literally, with the plan of the Romans perceived. Now, the plan is just the fact that they're coming to invade Britannia. Okay, so with the plan perceived, remember you can always convert an ablative absolute into better English. Instead of the literal with the plan of the Romans perceived, you could say when the plan of the Romans was perceived or after they perceived the plan of the Romans. Any of those are fine translations of an ablative absolute. Another ablative absolute. Praemiso equitatu et essedariis. Literally, with the cavalry, equitatu, and charioteers, essedariis. Okay, so with them, now, miso would mean having been sent. Pri means like forward or before. Okay, so sent forward. Quo plerumque genere. Now he's kind of like in the middle of a thought, and he's going to go off on another thought for a moment, namely the fact that these particular Britons, they really used cavalry and charioteers a lot. Okay, so he says, with which kind greatly. He's talking about the fact that they used cavalry and charioteers. Quo genere, with which, quo genere, with which kind. Plerumque just means like really like a lot or greatly. Consuerunt is the main verb of this first part of the sentence. Okay, so but the barbarians, what the barbarians were is consuerunt. They were accustomed. What they were accustomed to do is uti. This is the infinitive of the deponent verb utor, to use. Okay, which they were accustomed to use. Where were they accustomed to use them? In battles, in proeliis. Okay, so what Caesar's done is he started a thought, but the barbarians. Now, the actual thing the barbarians are doing, the actual main verb is down here. The barbarians were prohibiting. Okay, so the barbarians were prohibiting something from happening. Okay, but then Caesar tells us all of this background information to the fact that the barbarians were prohibiting something from happening. Namely, what we've got so far, with the plan of the Romans having been perceived, with the cavalry and charioteers having been sent forward, and then he says, oh, you know them, with which they were accustomed to use greatly in battle. Okay, so now Caesar's going to get on to the actual point of this sentence. Okay, so again, that's what we have so far. Okay, reliquis copiis subsecuti. Again, we have a deponent verb, subsequor, means like to follow or to follow on. So having followed, because you know that the past participle of a deponent verb is active. So having followed with what? Reliquis copiis, with the rest of their forces. Okay, now finally, Caesar's going to tell us the actual sentence here. Okay, here's what they were doing. Prohibebant. They were preventing. Okay, what were they preventing? Nostros. Okay, now this is the adjective, the accusative plural. This is the adjective that just means our something. Okay, but now what it really stands for is nostros milites, our soldiers, okay? But Caesar knows when he's writing to Romans that they know that our soldiers are the subject here, so he doesn't have to say milites at all. Nostros just means like our guys, okay, like our ones, okay? So they were prohibiting ours, understood our soldiers, they were prohibiting them to do this, egredi. This is the infinitive of the deponent verb, egredior, to exit or to get out of, okay? They were prohibiting our soldiers to get out of the boats. Now, in English, don't you think instead of prohibiting them to get out, in English we would probably say prohibiting them from getting out. Okay, that's how we would tweak that in English. But in Latin, just for the record, egredi is the infinitive to get out. Okay, what they were prohibiting them to get out is navibus, from the boats. Now, what's going to emerge here, Caesar has not thought some important things through. They are arriving at the shores. Somehow now they're being opposed. I mean, when you do a naval landing, you'd love to just land and get off the boats and like go form a camp somewhere, okay? Well, Caesar's not going to have that luxury. He's got soldiers who are going to fight him even as he tries to land, okay? And one of the biggest problems is going to be getting out of those boats. Erat ob has causas summa difficultas. Erat literally was, but here there was. There was summa difficultas, the greatest difficulty. Now what he's talking about is the greatest difficulty of getting out of those boats. And what Caesar's going to do, he's going to explain a laundry list of reasons why there was summa difficultas to get out of those boats. These are going to be the has causas, okay? Ob has causas, on account of these reasons, okay? Now, we are not in this video going to study all of them, okay? Because what's going to happen is he's going to just list off all these reasons. We're going to look at the first one, which does constitute its own self-defined sentence, and then in the next video we will pick up with all the causas that there was summa difficultas. Okay, here's the first reason why it was so difficult for them to get out of those boats. Quod naves propter magnitudinem nisi in altu constitui non poterant. Because naves, the ships, non poterant, they could not, okay? So they could not, and you know that the verb possum, to be able, takes an infinitive of the action, okay? So what they were not able to do, they could not constitui, be stationed, okay? This is the passive infinitive of the verb constituere, okay? So constituere would mean to station or to hold ground. So they could not be stationed, nisi, unless, okay? Unless in alto, literally in deep, understood water, okay? Now, why could these ships not be stationed except or unless in deep water? Propter magnitudinem, on account of their size, okay? So the issue here is, the U.S. Navy, for instance, has some ships that there are places it can't go, okay? Because the water has to be a certain depth for a ship of that size to go, okay? It's the same thing with Caesar's ships. It's actually a little worse, by the way, because our Navy has the ability to build some ships that actually have a fairly flat hull, okay? So like when you look at an aircraft carrier, for instance, there's actually not as much below water as there is above, a lot less, in fact, okay? It has to do with water tension and the fact that you can construct something that weighs, like as an Earth, thousands upon thousands of tons, and it'll actually float simply because of the water tension. Okay, so Caesar's problem is he's got these big boats. So he's got a bunch of soldiers in these big boats, and now they can't go any further because if they do, they're going to like ground these boats into the ground underneath. And so how are they supposed to now get out of these boats? Caesar has created his own problem by not really planning this through. Okay, so in the next video, we will continue the list of reasons why. So the first reason why it's so difficult to get out of these boats is because these ships can't go much further than they are right now from shore.